All right, everybody, thanks for joining me today. Today we're going to take a look at some sapwood. So we're going to get us a piece out here. I'm going to saw it, and we're going to take a good look at it. So you guys stick with me. We'll get right into it. This here is going to be the piece I'm going to use. It is very, very old and very, very rotten. So whenever I cut into this, what we should have exposed should be pretty easy to take a lot of this dead stuff off and just get down to where we're pretty much simply going to have our wood that's infused with the pine resin. So I'm going to cut this, guys. I'm going to actually saw it and try to get a good cross section for us to look at, and I'll come right back to you. All right, now take a good look at our cross section. You'll notice these much darker, closer to an amber colored wood right here. And if you'll notice too that these are usually connected to a branch. Now what you're seeing in there is a large concentration of pine resin. Now typically when you find this laying in the woods and you go to collect it, especially for doing the bushcraft survival angle, now typically an axe or a hatchet, maybe even a handsaw, we could process this down. But what we're aiming for is this amber color stuff, and the more amber color it is, the better. And like I said, this is very old. This thing has been laying on the ground for, to be honest with you, I'd say somewhere close to 10-15 years, if not 20. So a pine rots quite readily, and after it dies and falls to the ground. So whereas we have a lot of rotten wood that's not good for much except for maybe making charred material, it is, however, a really good source of resin. This whole little knot, go back on the other side there, all the way through is resin. Now once we get this in this condition here, and I got a few more pieces, by the way, to show you. You can see some are much darker than others. We got a little bit here, but compared to the color in this one, see there is a bit of a difference. So we would want, if we cut up multiples of this, find the most richest. And right now, that one right there, to me, looks like it's got the most concentration. Now these two pieces, we have a smaller one here. Now that one didn't provide much, but it only had like 2 branches. So this here probably is not worth my time. And we have a larger chunk. There's a decent bit of amber coming off this bigger branch. So that might be one worth actually trying to cut out of here. Yeah, we don't have to do nothing too crazy. Now we can take our hatchet, or if we happen to have an axe, will work too. Just a little more careful with your slings. We can start working on trying to separate these sections. Now, if you look, there's actually, with this one specifically here, there's an inclusion. What literally looks like it healed over a small branch, this little piece right here. So this log would have a very highly concentrated bit of resin inside of it because it was a wound, and this pine tree produced quite a bit of resin to help seal up and protect that wounded area. So concentrated through here, and looks like even up through here, we definitely got some resin, and we can start trying to work into it. I can already tell you from the way that felt, we definitely have resin in this section. You see that amber color in that little piece, and that's, oh yeah, I mean the smell alone is, you could really smell it. It's got a lot of resin in it. Now, since this is so dense right here, and that is because of a lot of that resin, we may want to get us a decent batten and put our hatchet down and start battening through this so we can try to segregate specific chunks that we want, because I'm more focused on this really dark amber colored ring right here. So I'm going to find us a batten, and I'm going to get to work trying to cut this little section out right here. Okay, got me that. I don't know if this is heavy enough. If it's not, it's no big deal. I can get a larger, heavier one. So that's what I'm going to try to knock this out with right here, guys. All right, here we go. So I want to start back here and see if I can't get some of these corners nipped off. That stuff is dense. It is resisting. And there is a knot right here too, that we are actually in. That is actually a part of this. So this back end may not be where I want to focus my attention. Oh, wow, yeah. Take a good look at that piece. Not all of that has a lot of good resin. We see we got a nice little swath in the middle here. And I can feel it's still kind of tacky. And it's been pretty cold this little stretch of weather we've had here. We've gotten to the 30s. One night even got down to about 20 something. So we had a lot of rain too. So we had a lot of cold, wet weather. So this stuff is more solid now too, versus it been in the hot summer weather. Definitely affects the consistency of resin. So let's go ahead and see if we can't just hack a little bit off here. So I want to get a lot of this waste wood off this. Okay, all right, see I'm exposing more resin right there. So I think right now my main goal actually needs to be to start chopping down into it, just to see if we can't get that piece completely out of there. Now, if you got a good handsaw, definitely be quicker, more efficient to process this down with a handsaw if you got it. Or if you're prepping this before you go out, there's no shame in processing this stuff with a chainsaw, because the goal is to have the piece of pine resin, or the fatwood, the resin in the wood. You want the idea of this is obviously to have this for fire prep. So don't, if you're doing bushcraft and survival, I want to say this: don't be ashamed to use the proper tools for the proper job to, dare I say, prep your preps. Because getting this out of here and putting it somewhere in a fire kit, a pack, whatever it may be, that is a part of a prep. So that's what that's kind of the goal that we're working on here. So nothing says you have to wait till you're in a survival situation and then try to obtain these resources while you're in a hard spot. Ideally, having some on you to use when something bad does happen is the main goal here. So, like, obviously, if we're talking something you're going to keep on your person, we don't want this whole giant piece necessarily, but we can take a decent sized chunk of it. Think maybe 5-6 inches long, 4 inches long even, maybe twice the diameter as a number 2 pencil, if that'd be easier to carry that way, or better than nothing, literally make it roughly the size of a number 2 pencil. Whatever you got to do to be able to carry some. So that would be something you could use for your first initial fires while you're out there trying to gather more resources. Now, I'm going to process this thing down, guys. I'll get right back to you because this is going to take several minutes, and I really don't know if you guys want to sit here and watch all that. So I'll get this done and get right back to you. All right, guys, we got that processed down a bit more. I did decide to go ahead and take a saw to that. Made it a lot more faster and easier. Now we can still see we do have some in our rings here, but now we can really see where our concentration is. Now we can start to come in, I'd say roughly here, and gouge out more of this. So we don't necessarily want all of this. And we're right into that pine knot. I'm going to split this and just kind of want to see what's in the middle of this little piece here. We definitely got some. There is some good chunky bits of pine resin right in through those cracks there. Oh yeah, man, that smells just like Pine Sol cleaning detergent for like a mop. Now, there's enough in that piece. I would almost be satisfied to I'd probably square this up a little bit more. That's a nice little chunk I could throw in a pocket if I square it up, and I'll have rough, sharp edges. Little bit of a backpack kind of throw that bad boy in there. And what you can do with these little pieces here, make them into very fine little pieces. Make sure you got your resin in them pieces. Get your little fire started with your tinder. Have these very small shards of this. I'm talking stuff like that, and even a little smaller. Just like little shards of it, that pine resin in it. And once that catches, you're off to the races. But let's continue. Okay, I'm going to split this one. This looks like it has far less in it. So there looks like maybe a chunk right here that actually has it in there. Yeah, so that's pretty white. And right here is the only little section that even really has any. So this piece, I'd let go. Now we're getting into the thick of it where we're mostly dealing with a very large chunk of pine resined wood here. And you can obviously continue to trim this thing up to your likeness. Take your hand saw, square this up just a little bit more, then come back on this side and literally cut you a nice little chunk off at the thickness you want. And now we're working with some pretty decent fatwood here, or whatever you want to call it. It's just, that's where a lot of the resin from the pine tree just settles in the knots and wounds. Now, some of the best places to actually procure your fatwood from a pine tree, if you could by chance happen to found one that's been blown down during a storm and the roots are exposed, there is far greater concentration of your resin inside the roots of a pine tree. It's been either sawed and cut down and there's a stump and there's still roots in the ground, or one that has been blown down by the wind or a little bit of a landslide, whatever the case may be, and you have exposed roots. The vast majority of that pine resin is going to rush down into that root system. But as old as this piece here is, and it's just the odor of it alone, like right now, I literally feel like I'm sitting over top a bucket of mop water with Pine Sol in it. It's quite pungent. I mean, in a good way. I love the smell of it, but it's a very strong smell. So I'm pretty confident in the concentration of it. Now, the idea of processing this down further, you want it in manageable pieces, because typically we're going to scrape this material into finer little shavings, and we're going to get a little ball of it build up so we can actually use that to assist us in getting a fire going. But we can definitely get into that some more. We can start chopping out more pieces of this that we don't necessarily want. Most of this has a decent little bit in the center. It's throughout, but it's obviously it's been concentrated more in certain areas. Now that little piece that was a branch that I'd broken off, you can see the damage there that it healed over. There is a very large chunk of pine resin right in there. So that's something you could work on too, if you felt so inclined. You notice the dark smoke and how bright that burns. And we got a pretty good breeze up here, and it's still burning through that breeze, as tiny as that piece is. That is the benefit of finding this material. It's allowing you to have a very good opportunity in tough conditions to actually achieve and maintain a fire. And if you guys hear that sizzling? So now we can preserve our resources, say, whether this be a Bic, Zippo, or torch lighter. It doesn't matter, because if I'm in the situation, now I have this that works like a really stout match. So if in fact that I had to procure the fat wood while I was actually out, that's great. And I can, after I do that, and process this down into smaller, easier to carry pieces. So as you can see, this piece here that's starting to flake off, that's where I ripped this off, by the way. We'll get something a little less intense to catch this breeze chill just a hair. We'll just use a Zippo here. Now, that gives us the time we need to dry out, say, less than optimal material to start a fire. Say, we want to get our smalls, but the area we're in has been so wet that even our smalls are barely damp. And, we want to upgrade the stuff eventually, like big around as your finger. So we're going to go tiny stuff like toothpick size up to pencil size, roughly one of your finger size in diameter wood to help build that fire up. And if we're dealing with semi-optimal to poor material, having something that can sustain a hot flame for a longer period of time is a great benefit, because that gives us the opportunity to potentially dry out that smaller material and establish a bed of embers. And if you have to, in that situation, you get as much of the smaller stuff as possible. That way, it takes longer, and you have to definitely babysit that fire more, but you can slowly build up a decent ember bed that way. Takes a lot more of the smaller material, though. But as you're doing that, keep your bigger stuff as close as you can, still allow your room to work, but you want that heat from that initial fire making that ember bed working to help dry out your even larger stuff. And maybe you can finally get to, even if it's damp, maybe inchish in diameter stuff, that should allow you to dry it out. Maybe start splitting some stuff in half if you have no ability to process larger wood to get to the center. Do the smaller stuff the same way, split it in half, keep it real close to the fire. That will help it dry out faster. However, that's kind of what you're looking for. Now, places like, it's practically legendary now, like the Georgia pine, that particular pine in that area, its resin infused wood is probably some of the best in the world. It is far more resin infused than the pine trees we get here in West Virginia. We got several species of pine trees here, and we have many of those hybrid varieties that was done by lumber companies. But we still get decent resin infused pine out here. Like I said, your best source to get it, especially here in West Virginia, is if you can manage to find into the roots, or you happen to get lucky and you found a tree that's somewhere along that branch system, and hope you can get as low as down as you can where the branches stop. Especially if it took damage in that area, you'll be surprised. It'll be even way, way, way more darker amber colored than this, and this is pretty decent. That's quite a decent bit of amber infused inside that wood. Now we have a few more here. Like I said, this one here might be worth knocking out this little knot, because that does look like it has some, but I'm not seeing much on the backside over here across from it. So that piece may not be worth the work. As they say, it's the squeeze worth the juice. Now, where's that one piece particular? Yeah, this one in particular, I would definitely go after. If you can see how dark that is, Now that one, it'd be a case where I'd take a hatchet in and we'd just work on cutting out this little hunk of branch, trying to at least chase it down into that part. So as you can see, once you started chasing that and you found all that amber, it wouldn't take really too long to hack that out. Then you could trim back this branch. Nothing else, you can keep just enough of this branch that may not have that much in it up here, but like a handle. And once you get that nice rounded piece out, now you've kind of got something. Take your knife, nice little handle, hold on to, scrape them little thin shavings off. All right, guys, in closing, I want to give you this thought. For the sake of, say, preserving our resources. Now, this little guy here has many fires that you can actually get out of this guy. And the thought I have with something like this, that old rotten piece of wood. Now, that thing is providing a lot for us. We can get this out to help us get our initial fires going. Once we get our initial fires going, we can obtain this punky wood right here. We can char this for consecutive fires. So just and there's way more uses for this stuff. I mean, you can eat the cambium layer of the tree. You can use the needles to make a tea. It's got a lot of vitamin C, provided you steep it. I've seen a lot of people, they hard boil it. They'll actually get the stainless steel cup of water boiling, they'll fill it in there while it's boiling and let it boil. Typically, you don't want to do that. You want to get your water boiling, set the vessel aside, let it cool down for just a minute, add your pine needles in there and let it steep. Just a tip for everybody, because if you want to actually get the vitamin C out of that, you cannot sit there and let it hard boil. It will not, it'll destroy the vitamins in it. Nonetheless, right here we got two really good resources, and the only thing that is required of us to make this, we can put it in a metal container that can breathe. We can char it, and if we don't have a metal container, you can actually get your fire going, let it go for a while, make sure the earth in the fire pit is extremely dry. You can actually bury this a little bit under the ground, rake your coals, and over top of it, get their fire going for a while. You can char it that way. And I need some time for all the rain we've had to dry up. If I can do it for you guys, I'll do it. We got more rain coming this week. I'll try, but you know how that goes. But we got the ability to have a lot of fire resources here. So that old dead pine has given me, just off the cup, without even doing anything complicated or fancy, 2 methods here. I can get all my initial fires going with this. I can char this for my later fire. So maybe where I'm going, I don't have a lot of access to dead rotten trees, which in West Virginia would be unusual, but throughout the world, I'm just saying, if you can get 2 resources out of 1 tree for fire making, that's fantastic. And I highly encourage you all to go out and practice, but practice safely. Be careful with your tools; don't get hurt. Just if you can, I know a lot of people may not have direct access to it. Maybe some people who do have some land out in the country. Ask around. Maybe you can even get little hunks of that if you live somewhere where they have, parks, state parks, wild, more like the wild national forest kind of stuff. Talk to those people that run that. Maybe they can find some stuff that they're actually clearing out, and they have some old dead rotten pines laying on the ground somewhere. Talk to them, say, hey, can I get, a small section of that that's got some branches in it? Maybe they'll let you do that. But this right here is a good skill to practice, because without the saw, it does take quite a while, and I was wanting more cleaner sides to show everybody, so you kind of can tell what you're looking for. But you can do all that with this. It just takes a lot longer. You got to be more patient with it. So with that, guys, we'll go ahead and close out this video. Really appreciate words. I really appreciate you all watching, and everybody who likes and leaves a comment really helps out the channel. So you guys, thank you very much. And with that, guys, I'll see you in their video.